Hello and welcome to another episode of Overlord Explained. I'm Shalltear, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at what exactly Ainz Ooal Gown did in his undead experiments, how he has benefited from all of this, and what his future plans might be. But before we're going to do so, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And now with that said, let's get to the actual topic at hand. After Ainz Ooal Gown had experimented more or less involuntarily with the undead for the first time, as he didn't know how the summoning of a mid-tier undead like a Death Knight would work in the new world, once he entered it for the first time proper, leaving Nazarick and saving Enri and her little sister from the Knights of Baharut, or rather the Sunlight scripture. And again he was quite surprised that the summoned undead would possess a corpse, when such a vessel was indeed available, and did not quite behave like normal summons, meaning they would just materialize out of thin air and then disappearing after a certain amount of time has passed. And while this was interesting for Ainz to notice, these undead experiments became much more important, as Shalltear was placed under a mind control spell by a mysterious enemy later, which, unbeknownst to Ainz, had been the Black Scripture, and not some elusive player or indeed an entire guild. And in fact, much of what happened in the 4th volume of Overlord can be understood as a direct response to the Shalltear situation, including a series of undead experiments in which a former adventurer, or rather the former adventurer group of Kralgra, got involved. I've explained it briefly before, but Mommon's rapid rise to fame, the rescue of the fortress city of Irantel from a horde of undead, as well as the taming of the wise king of the forest, as the giant dwarf hamster came to be known, was seen as an affront and a provocation to another adventurer group, or rather specifically its leader, Igvar of Team Kralgra. Now don't get me wrong, Igvar already knew that Mommon, the imposing 2-meter man with the 2 gigantic swords on his back, must have earned his fame. But he just couldn't stand to admit it. Igvar and his entire team had worked hard for many years to build their reputation and guild rank. And now out of nowhere came a nobody who achieved in a matter of days what they had been trying to achieve for years on end. Igvar's ego simply couldn't handle all of this. So once they rode out with Mommon to slay a rogue vampire, simply because they, or rather Igvar, didn't want Mommon to get all of the credit and the recognition for solving the situation single-handedly, they were in for quite the nasty surprise. Oh, and Igvar also wanted to use this opportunity to learn more about Mommon and gather experience while fighting next to him, in order to then spread nasty rumors about him and tarnish his reputation. His wounded ego left no other option for him. And of course, the other members of Team Kralgra didn't feel comfortable with how their leader was behaving towards Mommon, as there were a lot of decent people in the adventurer group. But all of their morals, or their condemnations, were in vain. Mommon had warned them, just like the rest of the adventurers, that anyone who rode out with them would die. But what he had omitted in the strategy meeting was that they would meet their end at his very own hand, or rather at the rot of the denizens of Nazarick. The entire Team Kralgra was wiped out, and Igvar had been clubbed to death by Mara of all people. And this in turn led to the creation of Igvar 41, the 41st experiment of Ainz Ooal Gown. And let me put it this way, he still bears in mind why he is now an Elder Lich. Because even as an undead creature of outstanding rank, you could still see where Mara had struck him in his lifetime. And I find such details in world building always fascinating, and therefore I wanted to mention once again how ironic all of this is, that Igvar, or rather Igvar, as an elder lich, now wants to serve Ainz Ooal Gown with every single fiber of his undead body, while he despised Mormont during his lifetime. And it was precisely this spite that ultimately had led to his very death. And during the battle with the lizardmen at the foot of the Elysian mountains, and the lakes and the swamps to be more precise, Ainz provided Cocytus with a bunch of undead troops in order to gain some experience in battle. Of course, Ainz also wanted to see how undead troops behave when they are not well led and largely left to their own devices. These experiences were important for the later use of the undead armies and, perhaps even more important, the undead labor force of Ainz Ooal Gown in the Sorcerer Kingdom later. Because all of this made it pretty clear that you could not just simply set undead out to do a task. You need smarter undead or just smarter living things to supervise them and to instruct them properly. Because during the start of the battle, the formation instantly had fallen apart, while the zombies got stuck in the mud and made slow progress. These skeletons with their light weight and their stick-like legs were able to advance well and truly faster in the otherwise quite tricky terrain. Naturally, due to their low intelligence, the zombies could easily be lured away by light infantry units, allowing the heavy infantry of the muscular lizardmen to engage the skeleton's warrior directly. One could also see how a single mighty undead, namely the elder lich Igvar 41, would fare in a battle when left to fend for itself. It was entirely possible for an inherently superior elder lich like Igvar, who was also buffed and enhanced by Ainz Ooal Gown's undead improving powers, to be defeated by a group of weaker heroes. I think that was also the only time that the strength of friendship and the power of love and teamwork had prevailed and saved the day. At least temporarily. And by the way, the sole reason why the lizardmen were originally supposed to die was that their bodies would provide better raw material for undead forces than the weak and frail humans. However, Demiurge of all people convinced, yes, the devil, the devil himself, convinced Ainz Ooal Gown that the lizardmen should live, so that Nazarick could gain experience in ruling over subjugated forces and territories. And later, the undead experiments of Ainz Ooal Gown had paid off differently. The two frost dragons, Overlord Shalltear and his son, who both were killed by Ainz in the Elysian mountains with grasp heart, were also excellent material for undead servants. And we don't know if they were deployed afterwards alongside the other living dragons in the New World in order to be essentially the Nazarick airline, or if they had some other purpose, but Ainz now learned that you can easily turn living dragons from the New World into undead servants as well. And there's another living dragon that Ainz Ooal Gown, oddly enough, sort of magically attracts, namely Platinum Dragonlord. And also in the alternative timeline of the Evil Eye bonus volume, Ainz had fought against Cure Elim Los Malvar, the undead dragonlord that still could use wild magic. And here's my point. Ainz Ooal Gown could probably turn these dragons into undead servants as well, just like he did with so many other life forms. And again, this is where I actually wanted to go. Ainz Ooal Gown is not capable of using wild magic. It's a form of magic that he still completely is oblivious towards. However, Platinum can use wild magic, like all other dragon lords. So it is possible that Ainz Ooal Gown could control Platinum, like some kind of puppet master, with a puppet with its strings still attached, and then use this reanimated corpse to cast wild magic in his stead. But currently that's just a bit of speculation on my part at the end. Okay, And with that said, I say thank you very much for watching. Be sure to let me know your thoughts and ideas about dragons and about undead creations and all of the undead experiments and the irony of Igvar, or rather Igvar, that had happened during all of this. And while you do so, I say thank you very much for watching, and special thanks to Arder Daddy Arder, ASK, Bad Guy Yi, Bad Burrito 316, Beezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feral Shivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Love Razor, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, Oh Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pantum, Personage, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Cune Carcos P, Shangox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito 27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Xenokai, and Zonagon. Thanks guys. And anyway, have a nice day, and I see you all again soon on my next video.